Good morning, everybody. We sure want to thank each one of you for joining us this morning. My name is Mike Hall, and I'm the CEO of Georgia Furniture Mart. And we are hosting this event this morning and hoping to make this an event that we have every single month, and hoping that it can be inspirational for all of us, that we can all learn a lot and begin to bring about some change in the community in DeKalb County. This is called Growing in the Workplace, and it's our first event in a series of monthly meetings to get DeKalb County business leaders together to participate in an open and honest discussion that will result in promoting opportunities. And I will tell you, myself, my leadership team, and truly my entire organization really want to make an impact in the community by working together, not only in our own company with our own employees, but with the business leaders around the community to help to raise the awareness for the issues, the bias issues that we're all facing as a nation, and the incredible challenges that we're all watching unfold before our eyes right now. My business is now 34 years old. I started it when I was very young. We've been through an awful lot of adversity and challenges during that 34 years. We've been in Atlanta the entire time. During that 34 years, we grew our business to be the third highest volume furniture retail showroom in all of America. We're the 100th largest furniture company in America with just one store at the moment. And I've watched so many things change during that period of time, and have experienced so many employee issues and struggles, and trying to find a management style and a style of literally helping people to become better, to grow. And I've developed a passion through the years of listening to my employees. We call ourselves a love and respect-based company. And when you define yourself that way, it creates, you have to live up to it. You have to find the ways to really show love, to show respect. And so we've been working on this for many years and have found many strategies that have really brought the culture in my own company together. It's radically improved and different than it was even really 5 years ago when we started this 10 years ago. And we continue to grow it. We continue to focus on growing people and to bring in unity amongst us, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of what country we're from, what pigmentation we have in our skin, who we choose to love, how we speak. We just don't recognize those types of things anymore. It's deep in my heart. We're just people. The division that exists, most of it's quiet. It's not exposed. It's secretive. We see that every day in our lives. And we work hard to draw that out and to bring people together. And we've had what I would consider to be extreme success in developing a culture that's truly love and respect based, regardless of all of the divisive things that man puts on in our society. I don't understand the adjectives in my own life. I don't understand why we have to be black people or white people, why we have to be gay people or straight people, why we have to be fat people or skinny people. We find all of these adjectives to label ourselves with that create that division. We're just people. We're just God's beautiful creation. And so I'm in hopes that these meetings can help us to discuss and draw out strategies and the real life situations that are going on in the workplace today. And I thank you all for joining us. Before I get started, I'd like to take just a minute to let you know that throughout the presentation, the attendees will be in listen only mode, but if you would hold your questions until the end of the session, you can send those through the chat box, and we'll try to address as many of those with Mr. Thurmond as we possibly can. At this moment, I'd like to introduce you to a very special lady in my life, Lorraine Cochran. She's the Super District 7 Commissioner, representing over 350,000 people from on the north side from Dunwoody all the way down to River Road. She's been very instrumental in working with us in helping to inspire these sessions that we're doing. Lorraine, you have-
Well, thank you so much. You know, I will say that you listen well. I said, just say from Dunwoody North down to River Road South, and that will pretty much cover my introduction. Because of course, you know, this isn't about me. I'd like to first say thank you, Mr. Hall, for having a social conscious, a vision, and a dedication to community that is extremely rare. I love your sincerity and your energy. I just wanted to briefly stop by this morning because many of you may have received personal calls from our office that are participating here today, and just say thank you for your presence. Each person that is a part of this call, this roundtable, is here because you've distinguished yourself as local business leaders, as well as community leaders and activists. Today, as we face unprecedented times, both unprecedented social unrest as well as a global pandemic, the need to have honest dialogue and develop strategies to solve the issues that lie within our community, there's never been a more important time to do it. And as leaders, I truly believe that the answers lie within each of us. You know, being from Alabama, I often quote my grandfather, and he used to say to me that people are like trees, they're known by their fruit. So if you are a part of this call, it is your fruit that has brought you here. And it is that same fruit and who you are that will help us improve our business community. And let me say to each of you, on behalf of the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners, I know CEO Thurmond is our guest speaker and he's already on this call, as well as the leader of Super District 7. I am grateful for your presence. Our business community is valuable to us, and I could not be more happy than to just bring those words. I do want to warn you, of which I've already warned everyone else, I won't be able to stay for the entire call, but even after I'm gone, my heart and my dedication will remain, and I will look forward to being a part of whatever develops from these conversations. So thank you again, Mike, for the opportunity. Natalie, thank you for allowing me to work alongside you. Councilwoman Ann Lerner from Tucker, I appreciate each one of you. And I will now yield back my time to you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. That was so well, beautifully said. Love you and appreciate you joining us today. At this time, I'm really thrilled to introduce a very exciting leader, today's keynote speaker, CEO of DeKalb County, Michael Thurmond. We're excited to hear from Mr. Thurmond today, who won a 2016 landslide victory to become the Chief Executive Officer of DeKalb County, which is one of the most diverse counties in the Southeast. Since his swearing in, CEO Thurmond's primary mission in restoring trust in county government. CEO Thurmond is the former member of the Georgia General Assembly and the first African-American elected to a statewide office without prior appointment, and is widely regarded as a turnaround expert. After fundamentally transforming culture and enhancing operations of complex organizations, such as the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services, the Georgia Department of Labor, the DeKalb County School District as well. A graduate of Payne College and the University of South Carolina School of Law, CEO Thurmond received a gubernatorial appointment to lead the State Division of Family and Children's Services and direct Georgia's historic transition from welfare to work. He created the innovative Work First program, which helped over 90,000 welfare-dependent Georgia families move from dependence to independence into the workforce. During his three terms as Labor Commissioner, Thurmond's most significant achievement was the construction of a $20 million school for children with disabilities at the Roosevelt Warm Springs Institute. Thank you very much, CEO Thurmond, and welcome to the group.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Mike, for the kind words of introduction, but most importantly, thank you for your vision that has laid the foundation for us to have what I think is a very important conversation relevant not just to DeKalb, but to Georgia, the entire United States of America. I want to acknowledge my colleague and my friend, Commissioner Lorraine Cochran Johnson, for her vision and her dedication to advancing the cause of business in DeKalb County. She's a consistent and vocal advocate for small and large businesses and for economic development, and one of our brightest young leaders, not just in this county, but in the state. So thank you, Commissioner Cochran Johnson. I see Council Lady Ann Lerner, who I'm a resident of Tucker. So one of my city council leaders is also, so thank you so much, Ann, as well. I'm excited, number one, about the future of DeKalb County. I love this county. I love DeKalb. And one of the reasons I'm so excited and hold DeKalb is in such high esteem is because of the broad diversity that defines who we are as a county. One of the things that I've come to understand, and you know this because you all are business leaders, is that if you're going to assemble a highly trained, a highly productive, a profitable workforce in the 21st century, it by definition must be diverse. You know, we can do things because for moral impetus and considerations of because things is right, are right. But as business leaders, you also have to make sure that you generate profit for yourselves. And so that's important. And in order to do it, you're not doing this just to fulfill some intangible need. It's about the bottom line. And one of the things that is always important is that we have to build a workforce that is representative of our consumer base, or in the public sector, representative of the people who we serve. Now, unlike some, I'm more excited and more confident in the future of our nation, our state, and DeKalb County than I've ever been. Even in the midst of the conflict and controversy, I see critical evolutionary steps taking place. And oftentimes at those most critical moments, there will always be tension. But out of that tension comes progress, comes new understanding. So even in the midst of what we see as a very divisive nation right now, and in the midst of a highly politicized political environment, I am encouraged by what I'm seeing and hearing. And Mike mentioned, I've been through various iterations and various leadership positions. But one of the driving principles that help, I believe, to define how I approach leadership is that I believe that deficit-driven strategies rarely succeed. Now, what do I mean by that? Deficit-driven strategies rarely succeed. You and I have been in meetings, whether it's in the public sector, community meetings, chamber association meetings, where 90% of the agenda is encompassed by what is wrong in our county, in our city, in our community, all of the negativity that we can document and regurgitate. And of course, if you watch the cable news stations, that seems to be the driving factor in all news as it's reported. All the negativity that defines us. So if you've been in one of those meetings after 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, you recognize that we've done an excellent job detailing and documenting the liabilities, the challenges, the setbacks. So what I'm suggesting among the business leaders on this call is that we abandon this idea and recognize that if any strategy that is focused primarily on deficits, it's almost guaranteed to fail. Let me give you an example. Business people can really, really embrace this. Whether it's the DeKalb County School District or DeKalb County government or DFACS or any other places where I've been, my first step of my first exercise is not just to focus on the deficits, but to spend an equal amount, if not greater amount of time documenting the assets. As business owners, you know that when you develop and submit to a financial institution a financial statement, you don't just submit your liabilities. What you do is you spend a great amount of time trying to define what? The assets. And of course, you then weigh the assets against the liabilities to generate the net worth of your business. I use that as a leadership principle as well. So walking into the DeKalb County, say the school district, in 2013, there were many liabilities that we faced. We were on the verge of losing accreditation. I think we had a $14 million deficit. Our graduation rates and test scores were lagging. Those were liabilities that had been visited and revisited on numerous occasions in the media, community meetings, and throughout the political environment. My focus then was that's a given. What then are the assets of the DeKalb County School District? Well, at that point, we had 104,000 students. I defined those 104,000 students as assets with unlimited potential. We had over 13,000 employees who were dedicated to providing education and support to our children, all assets. Possibly as many 200,000 parents and guardians wanting the best for their children. They're all assets. So when you weigh those liabilities against those assets, all of a sudden the liabilities paled in comparison. And one of the things we know that in order to address or solve the problems, you have to use your assets and leverage those against the liabilities to generate the solution. So whatever problems we face around race and class and gender, socioeconomic status, what we have to do in DeKalb first and in America in general is to weigh the assets and use those assets. This meeting today is quickly becoming an almost invaluable asset because what it has done is it's brought people together to have an honest conversation about a critical issue, which is the first step, isn't it? To have the conversation. And then honestly, to allow people to arrive at this conversation, who they are, where they are at this point in time. They are no perfect people. We all have biases at one level or another. We all have experiences that have been hurtful. We've all had experiences that may have colored our view of a person or a group of people. That's just human. Something Mike said, and I think it's so true that we all are just people. But it doesn't hurt and better to understand the person, to know as much as you can about that person. It gives you a better understanding. It doesn't matter to me that Mike is a white male. That won't determine the nature of our friendship or our relationship. But it's okay for me to notice that he's a white male.
Yes, sir.
That's all that Commissioner Cochran Johnson is a Black female. To know that she grew up in rural Alabama, it informs me about her upbringing, her philosophy on life, about her early experiences. Now, it doesn't define whether or not we are going to be colleagues and friends, but it's informative. So the first thing we can do is to be inquisitive about our neighbors, our friends, our fellow citizens. Extremely important. The second thing I want to talk to you about, and then we can have some questions about it. One, deficit-driven strategies rarely succeed. Spend just as much time documenting your assets as you do your liabilities. Then leverage your liabilities to leverage your assets to address your liabilities. Number one. Second, be willing to expand your comfort zones. All of us have comfort zones. And in our society, and it's not a criticism, it's just an observation. Many of us in our leisure time or in time when we have the decision, we spend time with people who quite frankly may think like us, vote like us, or worship in the same church we worship in, a synagogue, a mosque, have similar recreational hobbies and so forth. If you got friends who are golfers and you're a golfer, you spend a disproportionate amount of time with them on golf courses. That's human nature. But in order to address the issues that Mike envisions for this particular series, what we have to do is develop the ability to expand your comfort zone. You don't have to abandon your comfort zone, but literally just to expand your comfort zone. And Mike mentioned that some people are tall and short, and some people are black or white or gay or straight. That's just the reality of God's grace in making a world that's unique and entertaining. And you know, if you conservative Republicans often spend most of their time what? With other conservative Republicans, or progressive Democrats spend their time with other progressive Democrats. One study suggested this, that it's interesting that not only do we pursue people and information that confirms current bias. Notice this, most conservatives turn to what station to harvest their evening news. If you're a conservative Republican, more often than not, if you're watching the national news, which channel are you watching? Fox. If you're a progressive Democrat, turn on the national news, what channel are you normally watching? MSNBC. And if you count in the middle, you might end up on CNN. But that's just who we are. Not only do we want the news, but we want it delivered in a way that confirms our pre-existing ideas, thoughts, and ideology. Now, if you're challenged by that, this next narrative may bother you even more. About 20% of the people tune in to TMZ to get their evening news and entertainment tonight. That's troubling. But
yes, it is.
So what I'm suggesting is this: do what I do. And you know, I'm a lifelong Democrat, progressive Democrat. But you know, I turn to Fox on a regular basis because in negotiation and leadership, we often spend a lot of time thinking about my beliefs and what I'm going to say. I always teach young leaders, when you're in negotiation, it's more important to understand what the person on the opposite side of the table is thinking than what you're thinking.
That's right.
The key to being a good, successful negotiator is you have to spend a lot of time researching and understanding the hopes, the dreams, and needs of the people you engage with in conversation. Equally as important, oftentimes what you find is that the priorities of the person you're negotiating with are different than your priorities. So it's possible for both of you all to walk away as winners when you're not arguing over the same fact and the same issue. But that requires what? Engaging the people across the table. Third thing, and you all have asked me to come and have this conversation today and asked me to speak. And good leaders, I suppose, generally have to be able to articulate ideas and visions and thoughts and dreams. But I submit to you the most important skill set, character that will be of need in the 21st century is not so much articulation, but it's the ability to listen.
That's right.
That's the greatest challenge we face, is that we must be purposeful, intense listeners. Listen so well that you can hear things that people aren't saying. We're in a world where we can't listen because we're spending our time thinking about how we're going to respond or what we're going to say to the statement of the people we're engaged in conversation. Stop and engage the idea of purposeful listening. And not just listening to people you agree with. It's easy to listen to people who agree with me politically or philosophically or so forth. The biggest challenge is to listen to people who you might disagree with. What's the greatest threat to listen to someone who may have a different ideology than you? They might say something that opens your eyes to the fact that you were either misled or wrong or need to reassess your own position. The greatest threat is you might learn something new. So here we are, 2020 DeKalb County. Let me tell you demographically about DeKalb County, and I always like to talk about the public schools of DeKalb. And it's true in many private schools as well. Of the 100,000+ or approximately 100,000 students in DeKalb now, the African-American population is declining. The Caucasian white population has been static at about 12, 13% for years. The two demographics that are actually growing are Hispanic and Latino and Asian. So if we are still trapped in this old 1980s construct of North DeKalb versus South DeKalb, black folk versus white folk, then you're engaged in an obsolete struggle. The future of DeKalb demographically will look dramatically different than the DeKalb many of us may have lived in for the last 20 or 30 years. Some of us probably still wish for the good old days when black folk and white folk were at each other's throat, you know, and you kind of knew which team you were on. That's so obsolete and past tense. We need to move forward. If you're in business and if you expect or need or want to generate profits in the next 10 to 15 years, the people you will be doing business with will be of a much broader race of colors and creeds and backgrounds and nationality. In DeKalb County schools, we speak 164 different languages.
Wow.
And if successful business, something, Mike, you know this, does it really matter who buys those sofas, whether they're Asian or Hispanic or Latino? Does it really matter to you?
Not a bit. Everyone deserves a better life.
Everyone deserves a better life. And if they can pay it or lease it or buy it, then so be it. That's the nature of it. That's who we are as business leaders. This is what we are going to. This is where we are. And by the way, those who talk about the future when the world is going to change and you'll have these demographic shifts, if you look in the school system right now, it's already happened. And this is not a political statement, but building the wall is too late. It's already occurred.
That's right.
Transformation is here, and we'll have to engage it. I'll leave you this with a personal story from I've told it before, and some of you all may have heard it, but it was from my political career when I was in Athens, Clark County, Georgia. And Mike is very kind, and people know me as the CEO, but you know, I started my career running for the Georgia legislature back in the early 1980s in Clark County, Georgia. And I first ran for office in 1982, and I lost. People don't know that much about me. I started this career on a losing proposition, but my parents always taught me that if at first you don't succeed, you try again. So 2 years later, I ran for the same legislative seat, worked twice as hard, and maybe about 2 red ties more than I had. Votes came in and I lost again. So my first 2 campaigns were losing proposition. And, you know, and I was so angry because oftentimes when things don't go right, you always blame who? Other people. So I said, what's wrong with these people in Athens? Can't they see that, you know, I'm this great young political leader and I need to be in Atlanta under the gold dome? And, you know, I cursed my fate. And, you know, I was thinking, and I had done everything a politician could do in Georgia politics. And, you know, I'm running and, you know, I registered all the black voters I could find because I know, you know, if I just had more black votes, I could win. You know, it's black versus white, you know, Georgia politics. Right. It is what it is. And the second time I lost by 112 votes. So I said, Mike, all I need is 113 more black people to vote for me, and I'll be in the General Assembly. And we registered more people. I registered a guy that was passed out drunk on a street corner one day. It turned out to be a good proposition because he was drunk, same street going on election day. I voted. Still wasn't enough. And so one day I was sitting there realizing that, you know what, I'll probably never get elected. And the challenge was the district I was running in was a 66% majority white district. But I spent all of those 2 campaigns campaigning in the African-American community. And I just knew that if I could just get 113 more Black people, I could win. It just couldn't happen. It didn't happen. Finally, I went over to the University of Georgia and I began to study the fertility rates of African-American women. And I found out that my district would become a majority Black district. And I said, oh, that's the good news. The bad news was that it was going to happen in the year 2036. By that time, I would have been a 98-year-old freshman legislator. I cursed my fate. Man, if I could only. And one night I'm sitting at home and just in my self-pity, and it dawned on me. It was an epiphany, something I hadn't thought about before. I said, maybe I should ask white voters to vote for me too. It was brilliant. Hadn't thought of it. So I decided I was going to leave the Black community and ask all the voters to vote for me. Something you ever trying to solve a problem, but you're only solving it with the people you're most comfortable with inside your comfort zone. So I decided I was going to literally cross the railroad tracks and begin to ask people to vote for me. So we went to a house, I knocked on the door, and an elderly, well-dressed, smiling white lady came to the door, and I was with my sister. My sister handed the lady my brochure. The lady took it. She was smiling. I was smiling. My sister was smiling. I'm like, well, I didn't think of this 2 elections ago. I'd already be in Atlanta now, under the gold dome. And as the lady began to read the brochure, the frown turned to a smile. The smile turned to a frown. And she turned it over, and that was my picture. And the frown turned to a scowl. And she literally threw the paper back at my sister, and she said, you're wasting your time. She said, I'll never vote for one of them because they lie, they cheat, and they steal. There's nothing you can ever do to get me to vote for one of those people. That was one of the most painful moments of my life. And I turned and I walked away, Mike, and I knew, I said, you know, I'm never, ever going to come across these tracks again. I'm going back, and I've learned my lesson. So when I got to the street, I turned to speak to my sister, and I realized my sister was not walking with me anymore. She was still on the porch with the elderly lady. And she told the lady, said, excuse me, ma'am, let me tell you something. Said, haven't you ever heard of the civil rights movement? She said, don't you know you can't judge my little baby brother simply by the color of his skin? And the lady said, honey, give me this paper. She read again. She said, let me tell you something. I don't care what color he is. I'll never vote for a damn lawyer. This story taught me something. Number one, oftentimes we don't reach out. We don't ask for the help. We don't engage. We don't build the coalitions, not because of what other people are thinking. It's because what we think they might be thinking.
Yep, we draw wrong conclusions from not asking enough questions.
And we project our bias onto other people, our fears. But the good Lord has made the world in a very unique way. The successes we seek in life are rarely found close by. I submit to you that here in DeKalb County, we're going to build a future. We're going to cross railroad, philosophical, economic tracks, and we're going to build one DeKalb. Not separated by North DeKalb and South DeKalb, Black and white, rich and poor, Hispanic, Asian, or Latino. We'll build a DeKalb that's going to lead this state and lead this nation. A DeKalb that is not divided by North and South, but we'll build one DeKalb. One DeKalb dedicated to the proposition of one people, one united, focused on building a better future for all of our citizens. That's my hope, my dream, my prayer. Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much. That was so beautifully said. We've got about 15, 20 minutes left. I'd like to take just a moment of that and share a couple of things that you sparked when you talked about asset versus liability management. In the real world, we've gone all over the place with that throughout our history. And as of this last year, we began to change our way of thinking, in our industrial environment. in our operations side of the business, it's easy to find so many things wrong, so many things to complain about, so many opportunities for improvement. And we found ourselves and began to realize that we're always out complaining. We're always out identifying exactly what's wrong in the operation, what's wrong with the behaviors, what's wrong with the people. And it wasn't until we consciously and intentionally changed that, said, we're not doing that anymore. We're only going to go out and catch people doing things right. And we had employees, a lot of them, that we would have considered very low on the value scale in the business, very low on the adding spirit or adding something positive to the environment. That made a complete turnaround. We stopped any public negativity talk. If there was behaviors that were going on in the environment, well, that was all private. But we intentionally go out into our operation each day and raise people up, even sometimes raising them up when it might not be 100% deserved. But it was a pathway to get us to where people wanted to do the right things, as opposed to feeling beat down from just getting beat up every single day. And it was absolutely magical. I will say it's probably one of the greatest things that we've done in our 34 years is catching people doing things right, raising them up for the good things that they do, and thanking them for their contribution to the company. And we saw employees that were very low on the value scale that now are extremely high on the value scale. People's behaviors just changed magically right before our eyes. The person didn't change, but the behaviors and their ability or their desire to give back changed. And so I thank you for drawing that out and letting us get recognition and awareness of that story. Also love the story, the enlightenment about expanding our comfort zones, associating with people that are not like us, learning all sides of the story. I agree with you 100%. You got to tune into both sides on these political issues and find your truth somewhere in the middle, what resonates with you. And the other thing that really touches me is when you talked about we have to have the ability to listen. And that's another strategy that we've employed with high intensity, is just literally asking people what's going on without responding, without arguing with them, without saying, that's stupid, that doesn't work, you need to just be quiet. And sometimes as leaders, we try to hush those people who are saying things that we don't want to hear. But when you truly listen and you understand where they're coming from, then you can develop strategies and opinions and of things that you need to do to change your business. When you change the way you look at things you look at change. So thank you so much for those. And Michael, we've got some questions coming in from the group, and we've got about 15 minutes left here. So let me throw the first question at you here. Michael, can you give us ideas on creative ways to proactively source candidates from underrepresented communities?
Well, it's about building relationships and first committing yourself to the best qualified candidate. And it doesn't necessarily mean the best qualified candidate that looks like me. One of the things I've done throughout my career is, look, I want people who are qualified, who can get the job done. Doesn't matter whether it's male, female, whatever. We hired a new police chief about 8 or 9 months ago, and it was a big issue where, you hired a female. Well, she was the best qualified. I didn't start out trying to hire a female police chief. I really did. I started out trying to just get me the best police chief available at this point in time. And it turned out to be Chief Murtha Ramos. So that's it. And using employees to help you recruit. See, let me tell you who understands this diversity thing better than any other institution I'm aware of. And it's the most successful institution I'm aware of, and that's the U.S. military. Look at the leadership command structure of the military. What they figured out is that people want and desire and respond when they are being led by people who look like them sometimes. You have to do it in order to be successful. So that's what you see. Look, you sitting in a room, when I have my senior management team, I'm just telling you, it's everybody sitting there. I'm just telling you, it's women, men, black, white, gay, straight. I got some Republicans. I don't even know whether they vote for me, but they're sitting there because they get the job done. I don't care. I've never asked any employee how they vote or whether they're Democrat or Republican. I don't care. I just want you to make sure that the sanitation truck picks up that can, you know, on the day of appointed at a time. If you can get that done, I don't really care who you vote for, including me. So just being able to be eyes on the prize and being success driven. You want the best qualified people, and recognizing that the best qualified people may not look like I look. And that's what's important. That's the leap you have to make. You can be best qualified and not be a male or not be an African American or not be a white man. And then you can get to the next level of success.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you for that. Michael, do you have any advice for us on how to measure the diversity, the equity, and the inclusion rates within our companies, within our community? How do you really, what filters do you use to quantify that?
Well, you know, I don't have access to the data, but internally, you be your own best judge and follow the inner piece that tells you this is the right thing to do. Do the right thing. Honestly, just try as best you can to be the one who's sitting in the meeting. And see, it's easy. Martin Luther King said something. He said, the silence of the good people. See, it's not the Klansmen or the white nationalists or the segregationists that do the damage in our society. Much more damage is done when the good people fall silent. Recognize that it's not the guy that's spewing all the racism. It's when you fall silent and allow he or she to do it, that's when damage occurs. So when you're in the boardroom, when you're there in the management office or human resources office, you can look and see we don't have a diverse workforce or management structure. You be the one to raise the voice. And by the way, you don't have to sacrifice success and quality to create a more diverse workforce. Those two things are not synonymous.
Yes, sir. Michael, what kind of strategies have you employed, and can you advise us to employ to programs that you've put in place to assist with the things that we've been talking about today? Any particular strategies that you can give us?
I want to be successful. You know, heck, I want to win. And so, and I don't like to use sports analogies, but you look at Nick Saban, all those people who win championships, they get the best player, put them in the position and let them play. You be about success. If you're profit driven, if you're trying to expand your business, then, and you have to have a broad understanding of the consumer base that you're trying to generate. You look at that consumer base and look at your employees, and you have to align the two. Right now, we're going to have to do a better job of recruiting Hispanic and Latino employees in DeKalb County. I'm not satisfied because we don't look like DeKalb. And one of the things, and by the way, just this week, we formed an alliance with the Latin American Association, just in food distribution. We do these food distribution every once a month, and thousands of people who have food insecurity show up. This week, I had to reach out and got in touch with the Latin American Association because I felt like we were not doing enough to help Hispanic and Latino communities around in our communities. So you just be honest. I said, look, we're getting all these accolades, but I know that's a gap and I have to do something about it.
Love it. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today and enlightening us. That was some really terrific, great advice. I do have one last question that's coming in here that I'd like to ask. Michael, how can the business community be better advocates for the underserved communities on a policy level?
That's a great question. I would like to, Mike, let's set up a follow-up so we can have a discussion.
Yes, sir.
So we can talk about it. I know one thing, this past summer, we had our virtual career academy for 850 youth in DeKalb County. They were all races, colors, and creed. But to have business leaders talking to our young people is a step in the right direction, providing professional and other support. When we get back to a more normal situation, we can place interns. But in the short term, just being an advocate for the community. You know, the business community and business leaders are so important to the ultimate success of DeKalb and any other jurisdiction. Just being an advocate for diverse DeKalb and being aware and sharing our assets with the broader community. When you're sitting in your church or your community or wherever you go to relax or worship, and just to be able to share the good things about DeKalb. Let me start with this. We got a newsletter called the Relay, and I would love to get everybody's email address if you don't receive it. And it's a weekly electronic newsletter on what's going on in DeKalb. Let me tell you, the most popular feature in it, Mike, is the torchbearer. So what we set out to do was find people doing good things in DeKalb County, large and small. And I think that one feature in this goes out to 32,000 addresses. That has done more to change the attitude and the outlook of DeKalb than anything else we've done. To the point you made of catching people doing things right, we celebrate each week a torchbearer in DeKalb County.
Terrific. Terrific. Well, I think that's pretty much all the time that we have today. I'd like to wrap us up, but I would like to say that I hope this meeting has been inspiring, and I hope there's been value for each and every person that's come into it. I think one of the very biggest ways that you can show love and respect for your employees and the people around you is just to listen to them, to literally learn a little bit about them, listen to what their concerns are, even if they're not sometimes appropriate, but to listen to them and to thank them for their input. It's a really big deal. We cut people off too many times. We show too often to our employees that we just don't care what they have to say. So thank you for inspiring that. I believe that with all my heart. And this today we conclude our Growing in the Workplace event brought to you by Georgia Furniture Mart and CEO Michael Thurmond. I want to thank each and every one of you for participating today and hope you found some value in it. We're looking forward to our next discussion and session, which we're scheduling for Tuesday, October 6th at 11 a.m., where we're going to discuss blind spots, exploring the unconscious bias. And we'll be led that day by Carly Williams, the former U.S. Diversity and Inclusion Recruiting Director. And now she's the National Talent Identification Leader for PricewaterhouseCoopers. During this session, CEOs and other key stakeholders can commit on behalf of the organization by signing the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion is the largest CEO-driven business commitment to advance diversity and inclusion within the workplace. And I think that's really exciting that we'll have that opportunity. This commitment's driven by a realization that addressing diversity and inclusion is not a competitive issue, but it's a social issue. Recognizing that change starts at the executive level. More than 1,200 CEOs of the world's leading companies and business organizations are leveraging their individual and collective voices to advance the diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And I think that's a beautiful and wonderful thing. We hope to see you all October 6th. We send you love and blessings. Thanks for tuning in today. Michael, look forward to getting together with you face-to-face sometime soon.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.